For those who don't know me, my name is Kenny Matthews. Well, my accident happened. I got burned when I was 3 years old in an apartment fire. It's crazy because when people ask me my story, and when I tell them, they'll say something like, wow, you remember all of that? I'm like, yeah, like I was there. I was living with my mom and my grandfather at the time, and they were like two peas in a pod. I remember the day that the accident happened, my mom went somewhere and she left her dad to babysit me. And I was just being a typical 3-year-old, playing with my toys and watching TV. And my grandfather, he was sleeping on the living room couch. And then all of a sudden I hear this commotion coming from the left back of me. And then that's when I saw the fire just come out of nowhere, from the window. And I don't know exactly how that started. It's still like a mystery, The fire was coming in the apartment real fast and smoke as well. And they usually say, like, when you are in a burning building or a house, apartment, whatever, the smoke can actually get to you first before the fire itself, All I can do is just panic, I was 3, so it's like, that's all I can do it. Like, it wasn't in my control, My grandfather, thank goodness I had my grandfather there. He woke up coughing due to smoke inhalation. But at the same time, he was like dying as well. But he had a solution. His solution was like how he saved my life. He picked me up into my arms and carried me over the window by the couch. But that's where the fire was coming from. But unfortunately, I got blazed up. That's how I got blazed up by the fire. That's when the ambulance just came right then and there. And that's how I've been through a lot of surgeries and skin grafting and I guess cosmetic, plastic surgery, this and that. It's been like a roller coaster. Yes, they did hurt. Like I said, I remember not all of that. I remember bits and parts of what happened to me. My first surgery was after my accident, of course. And I remember being in the hospital, laying in bed, getting skin grafting, getting stuck with needles all the time for blood tests and medicine. All that hurt. It felt like a nightmare. I remember one time I did an interview, maybe a couple years ago, like something similar to this. And when I got done, my uncle, he told me something like, hey, did you tell the people on the interview, like everything about what happened to you? I said, yeah. He said something like, did you know, like after your accident happened, they told us that you wasn't supposed to live. And I'm like, really? He said, yeah, like one of the nurses or doctors came to me and grandma at the time, and they told me, your nephew is a strong person. He's going to make it. But unfortunately, his grandfather not going to make it. And I'm like, wow, I did not know that part. Because they say, like, yeah, when babies get burned from 3rd-degree burns, they don't have a chance living. It lets me know, like, all things happen for a reason. I kind of feel like a walking miracle baby or something, or like a walking, like, superhero. It's something to be really grateful for. There's a lot of things that we take for granted at times. And us people, we always tend to focus on the negative things instead of the positive things when something happens to us. I started off with Instagram first. Instagram, it was cool initially, but after a while, Instagram just kind of like died down, And I've been hearing about TikTok, and when I got on TikTok, I did one trend. I forgot what it was. I think it was a dance. Yeah, it was a dancing trend. When I did it, it was like, wow, I got like 100K views within a day or so. And it's like, really, like that's it. And so after a while, I just started to do more trends. And I kid you not, I blew up like crazy. After a year and a half of joining TikTok, I gained over 2 million followers just like that. I want to tell people, especially people that are in my shoes, or that's facing some type of physical or mental condition, stop worrying about being liked by everybody or certain people. Because obviously not everybody's going to like you. You don't need to like everybody. I don't even like everybody. Everybody don't like me or you. That's fine. Start worrying about being respected. Don't be surprised by money. Don't be surprised by appearances. Don't be surprised by titles, looks, achievements, whatever. Be more surprised how many people are humble, kind, generous. I remember a few times in the past, people will DM me and they'll say something like, hey, after everything you've been through, from like being burned by the fire, having a lot of operations, and what keeps you going? Like, what keeps you still smiling to this very day? And that was a good question I had to answer, I asked myself that question, like, what keeps me going? Like, do I want to, kill myself after everything because of society and the pain I still go through? It's like, no, not really. because it's like I look at my surroundings and I see everything, right? And I think the answer is pretty simple. It's just gratitude that keeps me going and keeps me happy. I mean, that's it. Like, because you got to remember, not everybody has what you have. We have to start focusing on and appreciate the thing that we got going on now, not for what we don't have. Because what we have right now is substantial. I have my hands still, even though they're kind of like deformed. That's a blessing to me. The fact that I'm doing this interview and still able to talk, that's a blessing. So gratitude is powerful. I have never, ever been bullied during my years of like elementary, high school, and junior high school before. Like never. I never been physically bullied at school before. Like never. Even though that's another blessing too. Sometimes I ask myself like, why do you think that is? And it's like, I really don't know. I think people won't physically bully you because it's like, for one, you really can't physically do something to somebody. If a bully comes up to you right now, they know not to mess with you because they see you kind of like, I don't want to say helpless, but then again, like you kind of get what I'm saying, right? During my years of growing up, like especially like if I went to school every day or if I'm around like a group of people, I'm always like shelled, or I'm always like an introvert, I should say. Well, when I'm talking to somebody like you one-on-one, or somebody that's my friends one-on-one, or like at least two more people, then I'm like very transparent. Yeah, but it's crazy because I always wanted to know during my years of growing up, how come when I get around a group of people, I'm always so shy, but when I'm like around somebody like a one-on-one person, I'm like an open book. Yeah, kids used to like stare or like scream or cry when they see me or something. But like nowadays, there hasn't been not one child that acted that way or gave me that same treatment at all. And I think because of like social media and the time has changed over, you know, like us disabled people are being more disclosed out there. I did like another interview. The lady asked me the same question. She asked me something like, how can we help kids understand like there's people like you and there's nothing to be afraid of? And I told her this. I said, well, I believe kids are like kind of like brainwashed as soon as they come into this world, right? Because if you pay attention to like what they put on TV and movies, especially cartoons, then you'll understand where I'm coming from. So like, for example, like when it comes to certain Disney movies, they always make it seem like the prince or the princess has to marry each other for their looks, you know? And they always make the villain in Disney movies either old or hideous or overweight. And children fear people like that in real life at time. I wasn't really that confident growing up because, like I said, I was always like a shy person. People ask me like, how do you become so confident now in your own skin? And it's like this. My grandmother used to say that old saying, birds of a feather flocks together, right? I think the reason why I'm kind of like so positive and confident within myself is because I make sure that I hanged around somebody that was as positive and confident as themselves, you know, because positivity is contagious. This is why I think most parents recommend their kids to hang around somebody that's good for them. Yeah, I think it's fun meeting them from TikTok, but it's like when you have an injury, you know, and you go through surgery and they do whatever they need to do to fix you up. I guess it depends on the injury you have, because, you know, there's people out there that heals faster than others and stuff like that. I think when I had my surgery, they had to take skin from somewhere, like either from like my stomach, my chest, my arm, and put it somewhere like on my neck or head or whatever. I think recovery, like, it lasts a month, but you know what's crazy? Like, I just learned this. There's this doctor on YouTube. He's very informative. So he said something like, the worst food you can eat is hospital food. Because he said something like, have you noticed whenever you come out of surgery, you're in pain, right? I'm like, yeah. And let's say you're hungry within the next 30 to 45 minutes later. I'm like, yeah, okay. What the nurses or doctors would give you is either yogurt, orange juice, milk, Jell-O, and stuff like that. And those are highly inflammatory foods. You know, I'm like, yes, like they did the same thing to me. Yeah, a lot of like nurses do that in hospitals. But he said also, like, when you want to recover fast after surgery, the best thing you can do is fasting. Yeah, because like fasting, your body is working off of your blood instead of your stomach or something. That's why you heal faster or something like that. I remember like after like getting skin wrapped on this arm and this arm, and of course my hands, that I had to wear like pressure garments and like to keep my fingers and arms in a certain way as I age or whatnot. And I wore the pressure garments to keep my scars from rising up. It's kind of like wearing like spandex. They are the most uncomfortable body wear you could wear. I mean, it's so uncomfortable to wear pressure garments. They told me I had to wear it for like a year straight. Honestly, I was so hard-headed at the time, and plus they felt very uncomfortable. When I say very uncomfortable, I mean very uncomfortable, and I did not like wearing those things at all, like at all. I would like be sneaky and like try to find a place to take them off without being seen, and I'll take them off. Looking back at it, I think I should have like listened and wore it a little longer because, you know, I mean, there's days where I wish my arms and fingers can like function more since my hands and fingers are like positioned in a certain way. I guess it depends on what it is, but most of the time I have to like hold things with both hands or both arms all the time. Like when it comes to like a spoon or a fork or silverware, that's no problem. I can hold that with like one hand. If it's something heavy, then yeah, I have to do what I gotta do. When I tell people like on my Instagram or TikTok, I'm getting a new video game, there's always that one individual that will ask me, how do you play the video game with your hands like that? Blah, 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 blah. You know how anything you do, like anything you do in life, and let's say you've been doing it for like a long time. You know how they say practice makes perfect or something? Yeah. So that's the answer. So it's like, I've been playing video games since like early 90s. I think even before my accident and after my accident. And I've been playing video games for like a long time. And plus with me dealing with this, it's like it's nothing, you know? Like I know how to move or like operate a controller without the extra stuff like PlayStation, Nintendo, Xbox, the games. I want to say, I don't know, like Spider-Man, God of War, Uncharted, wrestling, this and that, Batman. I remember back in the day, Mario was everything to like a lot of people. Even my grandmother, I never saw my grandmother play video games, but our favorite video game was Mario. That's how epic Mario was back then. You know, Mario was everything. Yes, Mario had been around for so long. He's kind of like, to me, he's kind of like nothing new. You know what I'm saying? Like, and they made like a few Mario movies, but with this one, it felt more like a actual video game movie Mario. You know, kind of like the movie Shrek. You know, or like Toy Story, whatever. I will say a movie I seen recently was The Little Mermaid. And honestly, like I was so amped up to see that movie because I'm gonna be real with you. Like during my days after I had my accident, The Little Mermaid was actually the first Disney movie I saw ever. And for some reason at that time, around the age of 3 or 4 years old, I was just so captivated by the movie. Every day of my years growing up, I always like The Little Mermaid. I could not wait to watch that movie like all the time. When this new one came out, I was like, I gotta see this. So when I saw it, it was like, I'll say this, I felt like they could have done better. I will say like whoever played the voice of Ariel, she had a very good singing voice. Like seriously, but I don't know what it was about The Little Mermaid that like really made me feel like connected in a way. Cause I mean, it's still like one of my favorites. Video games, of course. The Little Mermaid, watching certain movies. Cause I was always like a homebody. I don't think I really had like a social life like that. I wish I did, but I didn't. I was always home, either like getting my bandage changed and this and that. But my grandmother, she was very overprotective of me, like to the extreme. It's like, I kind of didn't like that as I got older because, you know, when your parents are too overprotective of you, it's like, it kind of becomes annoying, you know? Like you want to kind of experience danger. Like seriously, not like to be funny, but but I read something like a book recently. They say something like, yeah, when your parents are too overprotective of you or whoever, that kid or that person is going to grow up feeling like they're going to have like a pity party when something bad happens. And that makes a lot of sense, because if you like shield your kid from like any danger, like a police thing or something, it's like you don't want to always be there to protect your child, because they're not going to learn, they're from their mistakes. They're going to always feel like they can come to you for help all the time. And that's going to become annoying, like to the parent. Whenever I go out or whenever I get dressed to go out, it's always like, where you going? Well, how much money you got? You got money, this and that, blah, blah, blah. Like, call me when we get there. It's like, well, I don't know. And that kind of became really, really annoying, like really annoying. But at the same time, like my grandmother passed 2016, late 2016. And when I tell people my story, they'll say something like, well, I can understand where your grandmother was coming from, but I can understand where you was coming from as well. And with older people, it's like they have more wisdom and, and being wise. So I think your grandmother was overprotective of you because she didn't want to see her grandson in a position where he's helpless or he's being beat up or something bad happens, But at the same time, for her to be extremely overprotective, it's like she kind of ruined you, which is me. And you know what? Like, to be honest, like when people tell me that, at least they're being brutally honest with me, But hey, all my grandmother could do was just protect me. That's it. That was her job almost. I think it helped me to not be put in danger. Like, as in like not held up by gunpoint, not being threatened with a gun, or not being beat up or jumped by whoever. But I also think it helped, like it kind of like damaged me a little, because for one, like I'm not that talkative when I get around people, and two, it's like I'm very shelled when I get around people, and three, like I don't I kind of have like a bad social skill. I tell people everything in life comes with pros and cons, and that's just what it is. Appreciate what you have going on now, not for what you don't have. That's society telling us that we need certain things to like fit in, but really we don't. So it's like, don't get me wrong. It's like, it's okay to have nice things. Just don't let nice things have you, seriously. And also, like, if you're going through something, like if it's like somebody close to you that passed away or something bad happens, you found out this and that, it's okay to mourn. That's our healthy way to get through something or to deal with something. Don't stay there in that mindset for too long. You have to find the strength and just get up and just do something, productive. Rather it's like going to the gym or talking to a friend or cleaning your bedroom or kitchen or whatever. You know what I'm saying? Like, don't let depression control you or stress or whatever. And I know it may be hard. Yes, it may be hard. But honestly, it's like every challenge you have in your life is there for a reason. So you just got to find the strength to just get up and just do it. Like Nike, just do it. Don't criticize somebody else for like doing something. You focus on what you got to do, Seriously. Also, the last thing I want to say is like, I know there's people out there that's like wishing that they had somebody to call or had somebody to like love or kiss or hug all the time. And they say single people are the loneliest, right? But honestly, that's not true, because I think the misconception that people get is like when you are by yourself, you feel lonely. But honestly, no, that's not true neither, because I can walk in a room right now with thousands or hundreds of people, rather it's like at a birthday party or whatever, and I can still feel lonely. Being alone doesn't make you lonely. Being surrounded by the wrong people does. And I don't know about everybody else, but I would rather be by myself for like a long, long time. Because once you know how to take care of yourself by yourself, having company becomes like an option, not like an insanity. And also, like, being single teaches self-love as well. Privacy is so powerful. It really is. But the time that we live in now, privacy is hard to maintain.